My name is Rachel Cooper, and in all my 32 years of life, not once have my parents ever called me their pride. I wasn't expecting anyone to. But still, there's a kind of silence that wraps around your chest tighter. Each time it happens, the kind of silence you get used to, until one day it speaks louder than anything else. I live in Boulder, Colorado, a small, quiet city hugged by mountains, and always just a little too cold in the mornings. My days begin with espresso brewed to precision, a brisk 5-minute walk to my office, and 12 hours of problem-solving at the biotech startup I helped co-found. We build diagnostic tools for early-stage cancer detection. Not sexy, not wow material like Instagram influencers or heart surgeons, but it saves lives, silently, precisely like me. I'm the COO of our firm, Chief Operating Officer. I handle everything that ensures our research doesn't just stay on whiteboards or grant proposals. It becomes usable, scalable, and real. It's a job that demands clarity, order, and above all, quiet strength. I suppose I fit the part. I've always been the quiet one, the sensible one, the behind-the-scenes kind of girl. Maybe that's why no one really noticed when I stopped flying back for the 4th of July barbecues or skipped Jessica's yoga retreat weekend. Jessica, my older sister. 3 years ahead of me in age and a lifetime ahead in admiration. She teaches yoga now, drives a hybrid SUV, posts sunset selfies with Sanskrit captions. My parents beam whenever her name comes up. They introduce her to everyone. This is our Jessica. She teaches wellness. They say it like she invented peace of mind. Me Rachel's doing something important, I think. Something in healthcare, right, honey? My mom would ask my dad while I was still standing in the room. I've been funding their monthly bills for 2 years now. Quietly. No reminders, no delays. Internet, water, electric, property taxes, everything from 500 miles away. When Mom's car battery died, I Venmo'd her for the replacement before she even asked. When Dad's hip surgery left him too sore to move around, I paid for a housekeeper for 6 weeks. They never thanked me. Not once, not even we appreciate it. I don't think they saw it as generosity. More like responsibility. After all, isn't that what daughters are supposed to do? I never questioned it. I just kept going. Kept paying, kept being invisible in my own family until this year. It was a week before my mother's birthday. The one time of year I still tried to show up for. I'd already shifted my schedule at work, informed my assistant to clear my weekend, and booked an early flight from Denver to Boston. I even bought Mom a wool shawl from a little artisan shop downtown, handmade navy blue, the exact shade she loved. I called my parents to let them know. My dad picked up. That was already odd. He rarely answered on the first ring. "Hey, Dad," I said, chipper. "I was calling to let you know I'll be flying in Thursday morning. Should I pick up anything for the party?" "Cakes, flowers." There was a pause on the line. Then he cleared his throat. "Rachel, it might be better if you don't come this year." I froze. "Sorry. It's just that Jessica is bringing her new boyfriend. He's a CFO now. Works for a real estate firm. Seems like a sharp guy. It's going to be the first time he meets the family." I blinked. "Okay, so, well," he hesitated. "You know how awkward things get with all the career talk. Your job's a bit complicated to explain, and Jess said it might be easier if the focus stayed light." I stood there in my living room, phone pressed to my ear, barely breathing. "Are you saying I shouldn't come because I'll make things awkward?" "It's not personal, Rachel. It's a special night for your sister." There was a long silence. My hand trembled. Then I heard his voice again, Fold final. "If you insist on coming, then don't call me your father." Click. That was it. No warning. No second chance. Just a clean break, like I was being removed from the family group chat without explanation. The screen on my phone went black. And so did something inside me. I sat down in the chair by the window. The one I always used for reading on lazy Saturdays. Outside, the world looked unchanged. Sunlight brushing the tops of pine trees, joggers gliding by on the trail below. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the hollowness of my chest. A fracture that had been slowly widening for years had finally split wide open. I didn't cry. That's not me. I just sat there, still listening to the quiet hum of my apartment. The espresso on the table had gone cold, untouched. I had spent 3 decades being the daughter who didn't need attention, who didn't mind being forgotten, who paid the bills and asked for nothing. But that call made one thing clear. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a convenience. And now I was done pretending otherwise. I used to believe that no matter how far I wandered, family would always be a place I could return to. A safe harbor in the storm. A soft place to fall. But sometimes, the place you thought was home is the one that shoves you out hardest. After my father's voice disappeared from the line, after the silence of the call settled into the walls of my apartment like cold smoke, I didn't cry. I didn't throw the phone or scream or call a friend for consolation. I just sat there in my chair by the window, espresso now, cold and untouched, listening to the clock tick. The early spring sun was still warming the pine wood floor, but it did nothing for the chills sinking into my chest. The warmth of the season had no power over the kind of cold that came from a parent turning you into a stranger. I didn't feel anger yet. I didn't even feel hurt in the way most people might imagine. What I felt was a hollow expanding inside me, slow and patient. A realization that something I had clung to all these years, some thin, hopeful thread had snapped completely, and maybe it had needed to. I stood up, walked quietly to my desk, and opened my laptop. The screen flickered on. I moved on, muscle memory, past the emails, past the company dashboard, past the Slack pings that could wait until Monday. I opened the one app I had never once missed checking every 30 days, my banking app. 2-step authentication, Face ID. Then there it was. The list of recurring transactions. They looked so innocent, those green check marks, the quiet satisfaction of consistency. Power company, internet provider, water utility, trash collection. My parents' homeowner's insurance, their cell phone plan, all lined up neatly. A $497 charge here, a $116 bill there. No one ever called to ask how the payments were going. They just trusted I would take care of it, like always. For 2 years I had paid every household expense for a home I no longer lived in. For people who never once stopped to ask, "Are you okay?" Not even during the peak of COVID, when I was managing emergency pivots for a clinical trial that could have collapsed the entire company. Not when I lost a close friend to pancreatic cancer and spent 2 days sobbing alone in my car outside the lab. Not one. I hovered over the first auto payment. Cancel. Are you sure you want to cancel this payment? Yes. Auto payment canceled successfully. I moved down the list. Cancel, confirm success. One by one, the lifelines were severed. Not out of spite, but clarity. This wasn't punishment. It was peace. No alarms sounded, no urgent alerts, no one called to stop me. Just a soft, impersonal line of text at the top of my screen. Auto payment canceled successfully. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, arms behind my head, staring up at the ceiling fan spinning lazily in circles. I thought about every family dinner where I'd smiled through the Jessica's amazing stories. Every time I was introduced to a friend of the family with, "This is Rachel. She works with science stuff," as if what I did didn't matter, couldn't be understood, wasn't worth the effort. I remembered the Christmas Eve. I left the office at midnight to catch the last flight to Boston, only to arrive and hear Mom say, "Oh, good, you made it. Can you help Jessica set the table?" No hug, no "we missed you," just an expectation. Responsibility, I'd told myself then. That's what love looks like sometimes. But tonight I realized it wasn't love, it was dependence. And dependence without appreciation is just entitlement. The next morning, I opened my laptop again and pulled up the full transaction history. $15,720 over 2 years. And that didn't count the impromptu Venmo transfers, the birthday gifts, the time I paid off their credit card when Dad was too embarrassed to call the bank. I stared at the number. That money could have gone into my 401k toward a down payment, a vacation I never took. Instead, it went into a household where I was only useful when invisible. I closed the tab. Not slowly, not angrily, just finally. Then I sat back in my chair, looked out at the street below, and made a decision I didn't think I'd ever have the courage to make. It was time to stop being the fixer in a family that never wanted me whole. For the first time in 32 years, I was no longer going to earn their love. I wasn't going to chase it, shape myself for it, or pay for it like a monthly subscription. I was done. I didn't call for Mom's birthday. Didn't send a card. Didn't post a passive-aggressive photo on Instagram to signal anything to anyone. I simply lived my day like any other Saturday laundry grocery run. A long walk through the Flatirons trailhead. I bought myself a coffee, a new book, a potted plant I didn't need, but liked anyway. It felt strange at first, like I'd forgotten something. But then, it felt quiet, free. Like my shoulders were suddenly lighter, and I didn't even know I'd been carrying a weight. At 5:17 p.m. my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "Nicole, the power's out. Can you check with the provider? Something must be wrong." Nicole. That wasn't my name. It was Rachel. She had sent it to the wrong daughter. I didn't respond. 2 minutes later, another message. "Internet and cable are down too. Dad's trying to reset the router. No luck. Guests arriving soon. Help." Still nothing about the phone call. Nothing about what my father had said to me just 3 nights ago. No apology. Not even a flicker of concern. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about appearances. At 6:02 p.m., another message, this time from Jessica. "The internet is still down. Everyone's here and Mom's freaking out." What is going on? I read it once, then typed a reply. Deleted it, typed again, deleted it again. I wasn't ready to explain, and honestly, I didn't owe them anything. They hadn't asked me if I was okay. They hadn't wondered how the bills were paid or if I ever struggled with it. They only noticed when I stopped, and that told me everything I needed to know. I put my phone on silent and turned back to my book. As I flipped the pages, I realized something strange. I wasn't nervous about what came next. I wasn't dreading the guilt trips, the dramatic voicemails, the "you've changed" speeches, because deep down, I knew this moment had been building for years. This was the natural consequence of being taken for granted too long. Mom's birthday party would still happen, and Jessica would still smile for the photos. Dad would still pour wine and try to make jokes that made everyone uncomfortable. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't part of that picture, and maybe that was okay, because what they didn't realize was this. I was the one keeping their lives stitched together behind the scenes. And now, the thread was gone, and the seams were starting to unravel. What happens to a house when the lights go out? They were about to find out. My mother's birthday arrived. No flowers, no card, no well wishes, just a house shrouded in darkness, just like the way they used to treat me. I sat on my balcony in Boulder, Colorado, sipping peppermint tea. The spring breeze carried a chill, but it was nothing compared to the cold that had settled in my heart. I watched the sun dip below the mountains, casting long shadows over the city. Across the country in Boston, my family was preparing for a grand birthday party. It wasn't just a celebration for my mother. It was also the debut of Jessica's new boyfriend, Liam. A young, successful CFO, he was the latest pride of the family. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. I glanced at it, seeing a flurry of messages from Mom. "The internet's not working. Can you check with the provider?" From Dad. "No electricity, no water. Guests are arriving soon." From Jessica. "How could you do this to your family?" I didn't respond. I simply watched the messages pile up, each one more frantic than the last. I took another sip of my tea, letting the warmth spread through me. Then a video call from Aunt Sharon popped up. Curious, I answered. "Rachel, dear," she said, her face appearing on the screen. "I just wanted to check in. It's quite the chaos here." Before I could respond, Liam appeared in the background. He glanced at the screen, then did a double take. "Rachel, you're the COO of Pacific Genomics. You're the one who approved my transfer to the Boston office." The room behind him fell silent. Jessica's face turned pale. Mom nearly dropped the birthday cake she was holding. I smiled calmly. "Hope the introduction goes well today," I said, ending the call. Back in Boston, the party descended into chaos. I didn't need to speak. They did it for me. Sometimes silence is the sharpest blade. The day after the video call detonated what was supposed to be a birthday celebration. The office was unusually quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm when the air still feels heavy with unresolved tension. And then Liam walked in. He was no longer the polished, confident man who had shown up in Boston with an impressive resume and a bright smile. His eyes were bloodshot, his shoulders stiff. He knocked once on the glass door of my office before stepping in, clutching a file against his chest. "Morning, Rachel," he said, voice low. "Morning," I replied, nodding without emotion. He laid the quarterly report on my desk. No small talk, no attempts to smooth over what had happened. He simply turned and left, but that moment said everything. Later that afternoon, my inbox pinged an email from Liam. The subject line, "I'm sorry." He poured his heart into that email. Said he was ashamed, not for discovering who I was, but for realizing how blindly he had bought into the version of me Jessica had painted. A forgettable younger sister, awkward and unremarkable, who was barely scraping by in some vague corporate job. And yet here I was, the COO of a pioneering biotech firm. The same firm that now signed his checks. He wrote, "You are the strongest woman I've ever met," and I was too stupid to see it. I didn't reply. Jessica did, though, again and again. Text after text, she hurled blame, resentment, guilt. "You humiliated the whole family. You destroyed what I had with Liam. You always hated me, didn't you?" Each one read like a tantrum disguised as grief. I didn't engage. Until one morning, a new email from Liam arrived. No grand statements, no flowery words, just clarity. I broke up with Jessica. I can't stay with someone who disrespects others and lives behind masks. Jessica unraveled. She texted more now, less venom and more desperation. "Please just talk to Liam for me. He listens to you. He respects you." Sa and sa. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed a single line in return. "Liam didn't leave because of what I said. He left because he finally saw who you are." I pressed send. Silence followed. For a while. Then one Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I peeked through the peephole. It was my parents. They stood on the porch awkwardly. Dressed a little too formally for a casual visit, my father held a folder. My mother clutched a handbag like it was shielding her from something. I opened the door. No smiles, no hugs. Just a cold breeze between us. "Can we come in and talk?" my mother asked. I stepped aside. They sat on the edge of my couch like they were afraid to disturb the room. It was my father who began. "We understand things have gotten strained," he said. I waited. "Claire's struggling," my mother added softly. "Work isn't going well." The breakup hit her hard. My father opened the folder. Inside a neatly printed document. "You're stable now, Rachel. Your job is successful. We were thinking maybe you could help, a small contribution. $2,000 a month, just enough to cover insurance and some of our living costs." I blinked. "What about Jessica?" I asked. My mother's voice trembled. "She's not in a position to help. She's fragile." And there it was. Jessica was always the fragile one. I was always the capable one. I leaned back in my chair, cold calm washing over me. "If you want a financial arrangement," I said evenly, "I'll need a contract." My father's face flushed with disbelief. "A contract! We raised you!" he shouted, slamming his hand on the coffee table. My mother winced. "We loved you," she whispered. "You loved what I gave," I said. "Not who I was." They stared at me like they were seeing a stranger. "And that contract," I continued, "should state that when you both pass, all remaining assets, including the house, are willed solely to me. Jessica doesn't contribute. She doesn't inherit." My father stood furious. "You've become cruel." I stood too steady and still. "No, just fair." They left soon after. No thank yous, no apologies. Just slammed doors and muttered disbelief. And for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch. I didn't offer comfort, because this time I wasn't going to step in and fix what they broke. They came with expectations. I responded with principles. For the first time in my life, I didn't bend, and for the first time, I felt no guilt. After that final confrontation in my apartment, my parents left with their pride bruised and their assumptions shattered. There were no apologies, no phone calls to reconcile, no messages checking in. Just silence, the kind that doesn't beg for healing, but speaks of retreat. I didn't chase them. I didn't sit by the phone hoping they would change their minds. Instead, I did what I had always done. I lived, but this time I lived for myself. Every morning began the same, a warm cup of coffee, the scent grounding me in the present, followed by a steady walk to the Pacific Genomics office nestled in downtown Boulder. The air had started to turn crisp with spring, and even the city felt calmer, as if something in the universe had shifted. At work, I began stepping back more, not because I was tired, but because I wanted others to rise. The team I had trained for years was now ready. My presence wasn't needed in every meeting, every negotiation, every crisis. I had built something that could stand without me hovering. And then there was Liam. He walked into meetings with his usual composure, delivering reports, analyzing risks, recommending strategies. His professionalism was impeccable, and in the 3 weeks since the birthday fallout, we hadn't spoken a single word about my sister. There was no awkwardness, no residual tension, just a quiet understanding. Whatever had broken didn't need to be discussed. Some truths are best left to settle on their own. And Claire, she hadn't stopped. Every day or two, a message would arrive. Long, emotional, desperate. I know I made mistakes, Rachel. But people can change. I just need your help with Liam just this once, please. Or, you're the only one he listens to. If you say something, he'll come back. I know he will. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I knew. This wasn't my mess to clean. Not anymore. That Saturday, I left my laptop closed. No calls, no emails. I wandered into a small coffee shop I used to visit in my early startup days. The owner had changed, but the vibe was the same: wooden floors, handwritten menus, the smell of cinnamon and roasted beans. I took a corner seat and ordered a cappuccino. Above the counter, etched into a wooden sign, were the words, "Home is not always a place. Sometimes it's a choice." And just like that, something clicked. For years, I thought home was supposed to be my parents' house. That blood ties were unbreakable bonds, that if I gave enough, proved enough, loved enough, I could finally be seen. But the truth was simpler. Family wasn't about DNA. It was about being valued, being respected, being safe. I stared at the steam rising from my cup and finally opened Claire's latest message. The same plea, the same promise of change. This time I typed, "Liam didn't leave because of me. He left because he finally saw who you were, and so did I." I hit send, then put my phone on silent. That evening, I returned to my apartment just as the sky began to drizzle. The windows fogged slightly from the warmth inside. I changed into my favorite sweatshirt, curled up on the couch, and opened an old playlist. The same one I used to listen to during my loneliest nights. The songs still carried weight, but the weight had changed. No longer were they echoes of invisibility. Now they were affirmations of clarity, of boundaries, of worth. Outside, the rain fell gently over the balcony. I stepped out barefoot, the cold tiles grounding me in. The moment I looked up at the cloud-veiled sky. Took a deep breath and exhale. Not from grief, not from exhaustion, from release. For the first time, I wasn't trying to earn love. I wasn't fighting to be heard. I wasn't proving I belonged. I was simply being, and that was enough. I had spent most of my life believing I was the shadow to someone else's light. But that night, in the quiet rhythm of falling rain, I finally understood. The light had always been mine to make. And I had made it. I turned off the lights, letting the room fall into soft darkness, not unlike the peace that had settled in my chest. My phone remained face down on the table. I didn't need anything else. The chapter had closed, and I was finally fully free. Rachel didn't need to raise her voice to claim justice. Her silence spoke louder than anything. Her story is a quiet revolution, a declaration of self-worth, of choosing dignity over blind loyalty, and of walking away when love becomes conditional. Sometimes family isn't defined by blood, but by respect. And if you've ever felt overlooked, unappreciated, or taken for granted, know this. You're not alone like Rachel. You have the right to set boundaries, to say enough, and to find peace on your own terms. If this story resonated with you, give it a like, leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful healing and soul-stirring stories. Because you deserve to be heard, you deserve to be seen. And sometimes the strongest light is the one you create for yourself.